Rejection. It sounds small. A simple no. A text left unread. A cold look across the room. But to a man, it doesn't feel small. It feels like someone just reached inside his chest and ripped out the core of who he is. And here's the dark truth. Female rejection cuts deeper than almost any other kind. Because it's not just her saying, "I'm not interested." It's your biology, your pride, and your identity hearing. You're not good enough. Think about it. A man walks up to a woman, heart racing. His palms are sweating, but he pushes forward anyway. In that single moment, he's not just asking for her number. He's putting his worth as a man on the line. When she rejects him, with a smirk, a laugh, or even polite indifference, it's not just about her. It echoes. It brings back every time he was overlooked, ignored, or made to feel invisible. Rejection isn't just a word. It's a mirror. And the reflection it throws back is brutal. Here's the psychology. Men are biologically wired to seek female approval. For thousands of years, survival meant being chosen. The man who wasn't chosen didn't pass on his genes. So today, when a woman rejects you, your brain interprets it like social death. That's why your stomach drops. That's why your mind replays the moment again and again at night. It's not weakness. It's ancient wiring. But here's what most men will never admit out loud. Female rejection doesn't just hurt. It haunts. You'll move on with your day. You'll tell yourself it's nothing. You'll laugh it off with your friends. But when you're alone, that memory claws at you. The glance she gave, the tone in her voice, the way she seemed almost disgusted by the thought of you. It's the kind of pain men are trained to bury. Society tells you to man up, get over it, try again. But inside, that wound festers. And here's the dark part. Women know this. Not always consciously, but instinctively. A woman understands the power of rejection. It's why she can crush a man's spirit with a single word. Because for men, rejection isn't just no. It's a judgment on their masculinity. Now pause and think about this. How many men have avoided their dreams, shrunk themselves down, or even hated themselves? All because of a rejection they never truly healed from. That's the hidden wound. It's not the rejection itself. It's the story you attach to it. But here's the twist, and this is where it gets interesting. That same wound, that same devastating feeling that makes you want to disappear, it can also become your greatest weapon. Because in rejection is power. The kind of power most men never discover, because they're too busy running from it. And in the next chapter, we'll dive into what's happening in her mind when she rejects you. And why understanding it is the first step to turning that wound into strength. When a woman rejects you, it feels personal. It feels like she looked into your soul, weighed your worth, and decided you weren't enough. But here's the twist most men never understand. Her rejection is rarely about you as an individual. It's about the psychology running in the background of her mind. Ancient instincts, social conditioning, and power dynamics she may not even realize she's playing with. Let's break it down. At the most primal level, rejection is about biology. For women throughout human history, choosing the wrong man came with devastating consequences. Pick a weak partner and she risked her safety, her children's survival, even her tribe's protection. So over thousands of years, women evolved to become selective, hyper-selective. Her rejection is her biology acting like a ruthless filter. Is this man strong enough? Stable enough? High value enough to secure me and my offspring? And here's the kicker. This instinct hasn't disappeared just because we live in cities with Wi-Fi and grocery stores. It's still there. Every no is her DNA whispering, not the best option. Keep scanning. But biology isn't the only piece. There's also validation. When a woman rejects you, it can sometimes have nothing to do with survival, and everything to do with her own self-esteem. Think about it. In today's world, attention is currency. Every DM, every compliment, every glance in her direction fuels her sense of worth. Rejection, then, isn't always about eliminating you. It can be about affirming her. The act of saying no reinforces the idea that she has options, that she's desirable enough to turn men down. It's not cruelty, it's psychology. And then there's the power dynamic. Rejection is leverage. Whether she's aware of it or not, rejecting men gives her control in the social hierarchy. Think about how rejection works in real life. A woman ignores a man at the bar. Suddenly, she's elevated in status. A woman turns down a date publicly. She gains social validation from friends. Even online, leaving men on scene becomes a display of power. It's a silent game of dominance, not always malicious, but always real. Here's the dark part. Women often don't consciously strategize this. They don't sit down and say, "I'm going to reject him to raise my status." It's instinctive. It's woven into the psychology of selection and validation. But to the man on the receiving end, it feels brutal, because he's experiencing not just a single no, but the weight of biology, validation seeking, and power dynamics colliding in one moment. So the next time you're rejected, understand this. It's not always about you being less. It's about her psychology, her wiring, her social reality, her hidden games. And once you see the game for what it is, rejection starts to lose its sting. Because now, you're not a victim. You're a player who understands the rules. And in the next chapter, we'll uncover why rejection hurts men more than it logically should. And why that pain is the secret key to turning rejection into fuel. If rejection is just one woman saying no, then why does it feel like the whole world is collapsing on your chest? Why does a 2-second glance, a short text, or a cold shoulder feel catastrophic, like a wound that doesn't heal? The answer isn't weakness, it's male psychology. And once you understand it, you'll see why rejection strikes deeper than it logically should. First, let's talk about the ego. A man's ego isn't just pride, it's his armor. From childhood, you're taught to measure yourself by achievement. Be strong, be successful, win approval. So when you approach a woman, your ego steps forward like a soldier. If she accepts you, the ego is validated, the armor shines brighter. If she rejects you, the armor cracks, and that single crack makes the whole structure feel fragile. This is why rejection doesn't just sting. It feels like exposure, like the world just saw the truth you've been hiding. Maybe I'm not enough. Now layer this with identity. Most men unconsciously tie their worth as human beings to whether women desire them. Not career, not health, not values, desirability. So when a woman rejects you, it's not just, "She doesn't like me." It's, "I am unworthy as a man." Think about how heavy that is. One stranger, one word, and suddenly your whole identity feels invalidated. And beneath all of this, there's evolutionary programming. For tens of thousands of years, reproduction was the ultimate scoreboard. If women chose you, your bloodline survived. If they didn't, your DNA vanished. That pressure is still in your nervous system, so when she says no, your body reacts like you've been sentenced to death. Your stomach knots, your chest tightens, your brain races. It's not drama, it's biology screaming, "You failed the test." Survival denied. Put all of this together, ego, identity, evolution, and suddenly rejection feels enormous. It's not a neutral event. It's a psychological earthquake. And here's the dark irony. The more you fear rejection, the more power it has over you. You avoid risk. You hold back. You hesitate. Which only reinforces the belief that rejection is unbearable. But here's the truth most men never hear. Rejection isn't proof of your inadequacy. It's proof that you stepped into the arena. Because only men who try, only men who risk ego and identity, even get the chance to feel rejection. And that puts you ahead of every man too afraid to act. So yes, rejection hurts more than it should. But the pain isn't a curse. It's raw power, unrefined, unshaped, waiting to be used. And in the next chapter, we'll expose the trap most men fall into after rejection, and why that trap turns pain into poison instead of strength. So you've been rejected. Your chest is tight, your pride is bleeding, and your brain is on fire. Now comes the critical moment, how you respond. And this is where most men destroy themselves. Not because of the rejection itself, but because of the trap they fall into afterward. The first trap is anger. She says no, and suddenly you feel rage bubbling up. How dare she? You replay the moment in your mind and imagine ways to prove her wrong. But here's the problem. Anger doesn't heal rejection. It amplifies it. It makes you look bitter, defensive, insecure. And in the end, it pushes women even further away. The second trap is bitterness. This is where rejection hardens into poison. You start telling yourself, all women are shallow. They only want money. They don't respect good men. And slowly, that story becomes your reality. You carry it into every interaction, and guess what? Women can feel it. They sense the resentment dripping from your words, your posture, your energy. Bitterness doesn't shield you from pain. It guarantees you'll experience it again and again. The third trap? Withdrawal. Some men take rejection so personally they retreat from the entire battlefield. They stop approaching, stop connecting, stop risking. They tell themselves they're working on themselves, but really they're just hiding. And the danger here is subtle, because withdrawal feels safe. But safety is where men's dreams go to die. You stop growing, you stop testing yourself, and the wound of rejection quietly rots in the background. And then there's the most destructive trap of all, chasing harder. This is where men take rejection as a challenge. They double down. They send more messages. They try to prove their worth. They beg for another chance. But chasing after rejection doesn't earn respect. It destroys it. Because every time you chase, you reinforce the very power imbalance that crushed you in the first place. You tell her, and yourself, that she's the prize, and you're the desperate applicant begging for approval. Do you see the pattern? Anger, bitterness, withdrawal, chasing. 4 traps. 4 ways men turn rejection into self-destruction. And here's the darkest part. Most men cycle through all 4. They get angry, grow bitter, retreat, then chase again. When the cycle repeats, grinding their confidence down to dust. But here's where it gets interesting. Because rejection doesn't have to send you into that downward spiral. It can do the opposite. It can forge strength, resilience, and dominance, if you know how to flip the script. And in the next chapter, I'll show you exactly how to turn rejection into your greatest weapon. Rejection is pain. There's no denying it. It stings. It humiliates. It makes you question yourself. But here's the secret almost no man realizes. Rejection isn't the end of the story. It's the beginning of transformation. Think about a blacksmith forging steel. The blade doesn't become strong by being left alone. It becomes strong by being hammered, burned, and bent over and over again. Rejection works the same way. Every no is a hammer strike. Every cold shoulder is a flame. And every moment of humiliation is the bending that shapes you into something sharper, harder, and unstoppable. So how do you flip the script? It starts with reframing. Most men hear no and translate it as, I'm not good enough. But the reality? No is just feedback. It's a mirror showing you where you are right now, not where you could be. Instead of collapsing under it, you use it as a signal. What can I learn? What can I sharpen? How do I grow stronger from this? The second step is resilience. Rejection is like lifting weights. The first time you try, it feels unbearable. But repetition builds strength. Every rejection you survive without breaking adds another layer of toughness to your psyche. Soon, what used to crush you barely leaves a scratch. And that resilience? It bleeds into every part of your life. Business, friendships, leadership. The third step is self-mastery. Rejection exposes your weak spots. Maybe your confidence isn't solid. Maybe your sense of identity is too tied to outside validation. Maybe you've been seeking approval instead of living with purpose. That sting you feel? It's your psyche showing you exactly where you need to master yourself. The men who rise above rejection don't avoid it. They use it as a roadmap to self-control, discipline, and inner power. Here's a metaphor. Imagine rejection as a storm. Most men stand in the rain, cursing the sky, soaked and miserable. But the wise man? He learns how to harness the lightning. He channels that raw, destructive energy into fuel. Fuel for growth. Fuel for dominance. Fuel for transformation. And once you master this flip, something powerful happens. Rejection stops being terrifying. It becomes almost exciting. Because every time someone shuts a door on you, you know it's an opportunity to sharpen yourself, to rise higher, to harden your armor and expand your power. So remember this, rejection is never the enemy, it's the fire. And fire can either burn you to ashes or forge you into steel. The choice is yours. And in the next chapter, I'll break down practical steps you can take today to use rejection as a weapon, not against others, but against your own weakness. It's one thing to understand rejection. It's another thing entirely to weaponize it. This is where most men fail. They either crumble under the sting or bury it so deep that it festers into bitterness. But the strong man, he doesn't hide from rejection. He forges it into a blade he can wield. Here's how. Step 1. Emotional detachment. Rejection only destroys you if you attach your worth to it. When a woman says no, most men translate it into "I'm not enough." That's false. Her rejection is a reflection of her tastes, her timing, her state of mind, not your value as a man. Detach emotionally. Think of rejection like weather. It rains, it storms, the sun shines. None of it changes who you are. When you master detachment, you stop bleeding every time someone doesn't choose you. You become calm, composed, unshaken, and that aura alone makes you magnetic. Step 2. Self-reinvention rejection is feedback. It's a flashing neon sign pointing to where you can sharpen yourself. Did she reject you because you seemed insecure? Work on your confidence? Was it because your life looks stagnant? Build momentum, fitness, career, passion. Did you project neediness? Learn presence, learn control. Each rejection is an audit. Don't take it personally. Take it as a blueprint for reinvention. The greatest men in history were forged by failure and rejection. They didn't ask, "Why me?" They asked, "What can this teach me on my..." Step 3. Social proof and the abundance mindset. Here's the truth. Nothing attracts like abundance. If one woman says no, it means nothing when you have options. When your life is full, when your circle is wide, when women can see that others value you, rejection loses all its teeth. This is social proof. The psychology that says, if others see you as valuable, she will too. And it ties into the abundance mindset. You don't cling to one outcome because you know there are infinite doors to knock on. You don't beg. You don't chase. You choose. Step 4. Harnessing rejection. As training. Rejection is a gym. Every no is a rep. Every unanswered text is weight on the bar. Every cold shoulder is resistance. And resistance builds strength. The more you expose yourself to rejection, the stronger you get. Eventually, rejection stops feeling like pain. It feels like training. It becomes a signal that you're pushing limits by stretching yourself, leveling up. And the weak man avoids rejection. The strong man seeks it because he knows it's sharpening his armor and thickening his skin. Rejection doesn't have to be your wound. It can be your weapon. Detach, reinvent, live in abundance, train through the fire. When you do these 4 steps, rejection doesn't just stop hurting. It starts building you into a man no rejection can break. Rejection, pain, humiliation, heartache. For most men, these words are a sentence, a verdict that says, "You're not enough. You failed." But for the man who understands, rejection isn't a curse. It's fire. And fire, if harnessed, doesn't destroy. It forges. Think of yourself as raw iron, soft, unshaped, vulnerable. Every rejection, every dismissal, every moment you feel unseen, it's the hammer striking. Every insult, every glance that cuts, every door that closes, it's the flame that heats you. And the iron, it bends, it curves, it tests your strength, until finally, under pressure and heat, it becomes steel, tempered, unbreakable, sharp enough to cut through illusion, sharp enough to slice through weakness. Even the parts of yourself you didn't realize were fragile. Here's what the transformation looks like. You stop clinging to approval. You stop seeking validation. You stop defining yourself by someone else's choices. You begin to see rejection for what it truly is. A mirror showing where you can grow. A signal telling you where your strength needs sharpening. A tool for self-mastery. The man who embraces this is no longer fragile. He walks into the world calm, composed, and unshakable. Because he's no longer dependent on her yes to define his worth. Her rejection doesn't diminish him. It strengthens him. And here's the dark edge. Not every man can survive this. Most men stumble in the fire and fall. They take the pain personally. They let bitterness poison their energy. They let fear shrink their ambition. But you see the truth. Rejection is a crucible. Pain is a teacher. Humiliation is a ladder that raises you above the desperate, the weak, the men who never learn to fight through discomfort. You don't just recover from rejection, you rise from it. Stronger, wiser, sharper, darker, more dangerous, and the transformation doesn't stop with women. It spreads into every part of your life, your career, your health, your mindset, your influence. Every no becomes a stepping stone. Every challenge becomes fuel. You begin to radiate a presence that can't be ignored because it's forged in fire. You become the man who doesn't need permission to exist, to dominate, to thrive. So the next time rejection comes knocking, don't flinch, don't shrink, don't beg. Step into the fire, feel the hammer strike, let the flame wrap around you and emerge steel, unbreakable, untouchable, unstoppable. Because that's what rejection really is. Not a curse, not a wound, not a verdict, but the fire that forges power. And when you understand that, you are no longer the man who fears being rejected. You are the man who turns rejection into destiny.